I know everyone keeps saying that we're going to replace all of our SaaS tools with Claude Code. And honestly, I've always been like, yeah, okay, sure. It feels like a bit of an exaggeration. But recently, Claude Code actually keeps proving me wrong. Like I'll run into some annoying problem inside my business, something that I'd normally go and find a tool for. And now instead, I'll spend a day or sometimes a week building it part-time. Then I sit back and I think, hang on, did we just replace an entire product? And I think Claude Code has quietly hit a completely new level. Because now the question we're asking ourselves is this something worth buying? Or would it be better to build and maintain exactly what we need? So in this video, I want to show you the two tools that we've built and are launching inside the community. But more importantly, I want to show you the decision process behind them, how we spot the right problems, how we decide what's worth building, and how we turn those into tools that we actually use day to day. Because the hardest part isn't building the software anymore. It's knowing which problems are actually worth solving yourself. So let's get straight into it. And I wanted to start off by talking about the trap. So just because you can build something doesn't mean you should. I see people building or rebuilding entire platforms from scratch. The other day, I saw someone try to rebuild Go High Level inside Claude Code, a whole CRM. Really? You're going to sink hundreds of hours rebuilding something that already exists, already works really well, and delivers more value than it costs you in dollars per month. So the actual skill here isn't building, it's deciding what to build yourself versus what to take off the shelf. And just think of it as a trade. It's a monthly cost for the subscription for the SaaS versus your own time for building and maintenance. And don't forget the maintenance part. And the way I want you to think about it is actually pretty simple. You build it yourself when one of these two things is true. So number one, the most important one, you should build it if it's core to your own product and the value that you deliver to your customer. Everything else should be outsourced if it can be, which brings us to the second one. If nothing off the shelf actually solves your specific problem, then if the problem is important enough to you, you should build it. And this includes if the limitations of the tool that you're actually using today are a genuine deal breaker for how you work. Now, if neither of those are true, go and buy an off-the-shelf tool. Seriously, I'm talking from experience here. The time you'll spend manually maintaining it will make you live to regret the decision to build it out from scratch to save $50 to $100 a month. But when one of those reasons is true, that's when building yourself pays off massively. And I'm going to show you two examples where it did for us, both solving real problems that we actually had. Now, the first one was content. So the problem for us was staying consistent on socials. And for ages, I blame myself for this. I wasn't posting enough. I wasn't disciplined enough. But that wasn't the real reason we stopped posting. The real reason was I wasn't willing to put suboptimal stuff on my timelines. So I like all my assets to feel like they're mine and that they're also high quality. It's a bit of a perfectionist trait, but that's how it is. I basically didn't want to put out a carousel or an infographic that looked kind of half done or AI generated. And the reason that was so hard to solve is that designing something like a carousel is intensely visual. I'm not a designer, so I find it quite difficult. And here's the bit that you watching have probably experienced. AI image generation is great, but it's never perfect, especially when you're trying to generate something with multiple layers like a carousel. So it kind of goes like this. You generate something, it's 90% there after a few iterations, and then you get stuck. There's like one word spelt wrong, or it hasn't quite used the right words, or we've got one color off, or an element is in the wrong place, and you've got no way to fix it without regenerating the whole thing and praying that it goes right. So it made me think, what if you had one place to edit the outputs? You edit your template so that everything looks consistent when you regenerate stuff. You change individual layers. You can fix that one broken element on the page. And honestly, when I started thinking about this as a full problem, I thought this was going to be impossible to build. And then I reflected back, should this be something that we actually do build? And it actually ticks both of our checklist criteria. It's core to my brand value. So it's where I generate community leads from posting on socials. And I also want to be proud of the quality we put out. And secondly, even products like Higgsfield off the shelf don't solve my specific problem, and they don't make it on brand enough to take 90% of that manual work away for me. So it ticks the box of no off the shelf solutions are good enough for my specific workflow. So we broke the problem down into phases. It generates visual style templates first from inspiration posts. Those templates are then used for the image generation stage, which helps it keep consistent across multiple slides to have that branded look and feel. And then the third part, and this is why we actually built it in the first place, the stuff that we couldn't get elsewhere, we found APIs that turn those flat outputs into proper layered files, layered images, like Canva magic layers, where every element becomes individually editable as its own image. So we can just re-prompt for that specific layer at a really low cost. So we can basically edit it directly here, and then it posts straight out through the Zernio API. So it takes away the manual management we were using before to actually generate, design, and then post these carousels to social. Now, I want to be realistic here. This wasn't something we one-shot prompted. In fact, it's taken well over a week. But because it's core to our workflow, it was actually worth spending the time on to solve it. And now we can offer it also to our community members. So it's a win-win for kind of our core value here. So we took a problem, we broke it into different phases and then found the right tool for each phase. But notice how the product and the solution that we built has a really small scope. And this is intentional because we don't want it to have loads of maintenance over time that's going to cost us. So we wouldn't be rebuilding like a full CRM with 20 different features because we have to maintain those features. This is a very simple workflow that's a specific use case that we need. And by the way, this system that we've just demonstrated, the Content Studio, and the next one are both available as one-line installs alongside full courses to build your own systems starting from scratch. And at the moment, we're offering your first month at a huge discount until the end of June. So check it out today if you're interested at school.com/scrapes. Now onto the second example. And this one came straight out of a limitation of Claude Code out of the box, but also for us is core value to our product offering for our community members. So like I said, this came out because Claude Code's memory out of the box is actually terribly bad. So decisions that you've already made and context that you've explained before, work that you've already done, it actually just tends to forget all of that. And after a while, that starts becoming a tax on every single session and your time. You're re-explaining the same things over and over. And for people running their own business, it becomes a proper deal breaker because you can't run real clients and projects across months on the inbuilt infrastructure. Because when you ask things like, what did we agree with that client like 3 months ago, it needs to come back with a reliable, sourced and cited answer. And out of the box, it can't even come back most of the time with an answer for that. So what's the point in using it if it doesn't store all of your context and allow you to recall it? But instead of reinventing everything from scratch, we actually cherry picked the best parts of the best open source memory systems out there. We took a load of opinions from YouTube comments and people in the community and did a bunch of research on what was the best open source memory systems. And then we rebuilt them inside our own agentic operating system to suit us as business owners and our audience. And much like the Content Studio, we broke it down in the same way. We worked out what we needed and built that out in phases. So number one, we wanted it to cite its sources. So when it tells you something, it tells you where that actually came from, the actual conversation, the words that we used, the date it was agreed. And if it genuinely doesn't know that information or can't recall it, it's going to tell you so we can actually trust the source. Secondly, we wanted it to keep recent context and important information in short-term memory. The stuff that you're working on day to day, like your active clients, should actually be instantly accessible inside your session history. 3, we wanted to build long-term search by meaning. So I wanted to ask about things, let's say payment processing, and it will understand that actually it needs to look through and identify things like payment processors like Stripe without actually having to share the exact words we used in the original conversation 3 or 4 months ago. And then 4, which was probably one of the biggest deal breakers, was scoped access across your team and clients. So we're all used to working inside Claude Code in this isolated environment, but how do we actually bring that to a business or team of employees where you have one shared brain and every memory is tagged by who owns it? And then every question that somebody asks back to that memory database is filtered by who's asking. So you basically get scoped access so that people can read what they should be able to read and also shouldn't get fed what they can't or aren't allowed to read. Now, I've gone way deeper on exactly how we built this out in another video that I'll link up here, but notice it's the same process as the content system. We broke memory into 3 problems, basically: how it stores memory, what it injects in that short-term session memory, and how it recalls memory. And then we picked the best solution for each and assembled it using Claude Code. So let's come back to the point here, which is let's look at those 2. One was a completely visual problem, making good looking content. And the other was an infrastructure problem, making Claude remember exactly what we said and also accessible across teams. But the process we used for both of those was identical. So I'm going to leave you with some advice here on choosing what to build out. Check against the criteria before you start building. Is it core to your value proposition? And is it something that off the shelf tools don't offer? Then you're going to break it down into the root cause of the issues you're actually facing, break those down into individual phases. Then at each phase, make that build versus buy decision, or source some versions off the shelf to actually combine with yours. Try not to rebuild everything from scratch. And that's it. That is the whole framework. And yes, it does take time. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't. These systems sometimes take weeks, but it's entirely possible. And once you start thinking this way, you can genuinely build almost anything you need. But only build it if you actually need to. So like I said, both of these, the Content Studio and the memory system, are launching inside the community right now. Tune into the next video though, if you want to get the blueprint on how the memory system was built so you can actually build it out for yourself. Thanks for watching.